Well, here I am at a campground in southern Kentucky, just miles from the Tennessee border here in Big South Fork, wondering what have I gotten myself into. Come morning, I will share all the details. Well, good morning. It is a beautiful sunny day here at Great Meadows Campground in southern Kentucky in the Big South Fork area. I am a hop, skip, and a jump across this river right over here to get on the Sheltowee Trace, where I will be joining up with a fella named Michael Stutzman. He is currently traveling southbound on the Sheltowee Trace, attempting to set the fastest known time, supported style. So he has one of his friends here from Ohio. He's from Berlin, Ohio. And he is being supported, fully supported along the trail. And he's one of my subscribers and followers on YouTube, and we got to chatting a little bit, and I found out that he was doing this, so I've been following him, and he's doing really well. He's on pace to break 6 days pretty easily. So his friend David reached out to me. We were talking the other day, and he suggested I come down and pace him on the final 50 miles. So that's why I'm here. I got my farm work done early yesterday. I hopped in the truck, packed up in like 20 minutes, and hauled down here to southern Kentucky to Great Meadows Campground. So I just finished up my breakfast. I had a breakfast skillet today, and now I got some oatmeal in here, getting tanked up because I have a big day. It is 9 a.m. He should be coming down the trail sometime in the next hour or two. So I'm just kind of hanging out here, got camp all broke down, and really looking forward to meeting Michael. I've never met him in person. We've just spoken on the phone several times before his attempt. So I'm pretty familiar with this section. I actually stayed here one other time on my 100-mile challenge. That video is called Failed 100-Mile Fast Packing Challenge on a Sheltowee Trace or something like that. I'll link it up here in the cards if you want to check that one out. I think it was called Alone and Lost. But I got a real bad heat rash because it was so hot and humid out. Not much different than today's going to be. So I had to bail at mile 50, 53, wherever we're at right now. I think we have about 50, real close to 50, 53 miles to get back to the southern terminus at Burnt Mill Bridge. And then, of course, I also have been down this section going southbound on my self-supported FKT attempt in November of 2019. So I'm kind of familiar with this area, and like I said in one of my previous videos, it's like visiting an old friend. So I'm going to really enjoy this section of trail and hanging out with Michael today, and we're going to be hiking deep into the night. It's probably going to be between midnight and 3 a.m. before we finish at Burnt Mill Bridge. So hope you come along and join me on this great adventure, and I'll keep you guys posted and updated along the trail. One thing I did fail to mention is that Michael is more of a long distance runner, ultra runner, compared to me. I'm basically just a backpacker and maybe a little bit of a fast packer. But the one thing I have in my favor that I hope I'm able to keep up, or at least and try to pace him, is that he's been on the trail for 5 days and 290 miles. So he's pretty beat up and wore down. I'm fresh and ready to roll. So hopefully I will kind of level the playing field, and I will be able to hang with Michael and hopefully pace him all the way to the finish at Burnt Mill Bridge. It's going to be a tough day. This is going to be very difficult for me, especially in the heat. I don't like hiking in the heat, but I'm up for the challenge and I'm ready to go. Also, this is going to be somewhat of a surprise. Michael just found out this morning when he hit the trail at 3 a.m. that I'm down here to meet him. He suggested it to David a couple days ago, and I didn't think it could happen. So I'm glad I was able to get down here and make this happen. He hopefully has a new burst of energy finding out that I'm getting ready to meet him on the trail, because he was really worn out and run down. So that's kind of neat that we were able to keep this a surprise for him until this morning. So looking forward to meeting Michael. All right, here we go. It's go time. He could be coming down the trail here any minute, or I might have to wait 2 or 3 hours. I just don't know. So I got to get over there to make sure I don't miss him as he passes by. He does know I'm here, but it would be easy to walk right by this campground because of the heavy foliage. It is difficult to see from the trail this time of year. All right, time to sweat. Well, the wait begins. It's 9:30. I'm on the Sheltowee Trace. It's right there behind me. Michael should be walking down this trail hopefully soon. I'm prepared to wait a couple hours if I have to. You know, I may start walking north up trail to meet him if I get bored sitting here too long. But I wanted to show you this Rock Creek. I think it's Rock Creek, not Raccoon Creek. I think there's a Raccoon Loop, which is part of the Great Meadows campground, but this is Rock Creek, if I'm not mistaken. But I barely was able to get across this. I thought I was gonna fall in. I almost took off my shoes because it was some serious rock hopping. So fortunately there was a lot of debris there. There's where you come down right there. And that is the picnic table I actually stopped and ate at and charged my phone on my 100-mile challenge. There was actually some workers over there by the restroom hanging out in the rain, and I used their truck to charge my battery. But yeah, that was a pretty sketchy river crossing. I'm glad I kept my feet dry. I did not want to start the day off with wet feet. One of my other big concerns, other than this heat and humidity and the distance, is the spider webs. I walked 20 yards up trail and found one right smack in the middle of the trail with that little orb weaver spider right at my face level. Oh, I hate those things. This is why I don't go backpacking in September very often. And here I am, ready to go put 50 miles down on the Sheltowee Trace. Again, what have I gotten myself into? So where I am currently standing on the Sheltowee Trace, right across from Great Meadows Campground and Rock Creek, this spot holds a special place in my heart because this is the third time I've been in this area. The first time, this is where I quit my 100-mile challenge going northbound. And the second time, this is where I stopped and reminisced about that first time and actually broke down and got emotional, knowing that I was officially, finally, an end-to-ender. Right here where I stand, I'm an end-to-ender. Even though I hadn't finished the trail on my FKT attempt, this is where I had finally completed all 333 miles, which is what it was at that time. So, pretty special place here, and glad I'm going to get to experience some of the trail again today with Michael, and I'm hoping he shows up here shortly because I am ready to roll. I walked a mile up trail, hoping that I would run into him. I went really slow, just kind of a little warm-up hike, like 2 miles an hour, spider webs every 50 feet. I got me a handy-dandy spider web stick. That was not fun. I am kind of regretting coming down here to do this because I can't stand speed hiking through the trail when it's humid and full of spiders. Oh, it's terrible. I know they don't hurt you at all, but I just don't like webs in my face and spiders on me. Is that too much to ask? So at least my mile of trail that I just did is cleared out now. Heading back to Great Meadows because I got to thinking, you know, since there's no way for us to communicate out here, because there's no cellular service, it's probably wise for me to stay at Great Meadows, because if something happened to him early this morning or late last night, you know, I have no way of finding out. So I better stay at Great Meadows just in case the support guy, Dave, has to come and inform me that, you know, the hike is over. So hopefully not. Hopefully everything's going well and he's close behind me heading down the trail. So this morning while I was sitting around camp getting everything ready, there's one other person there camping at Great Meadows, and it's free camping, by the way. You don't have to reserve or sign up or anything. It's just first come, first served. Their dog kept coming over and barking at me, so it didn't bother me. I love dogs. Anyway, she finally came over and apologized about her dog and introduced herself. And it was a lady from Texas who's with another couple from Arkansas. And they said they were here doing Sasquatch research. I was like, what are the chances I run into somebody at Great Meadows in southern Kentucky that is into Sasquatch? So we had a pretty good conversation. I know the Colonel would have loved to have been here to met this lady, Lori Hood. She actually has a small YouTube channel she just started, has a whole archive of audio clips that she's starting to load up on YouTube. So if you're into Sasquatch, check out Lori Hood's channel. I think it's just her name, I'm not positive. But maybe you can find some information on it if you search her name. I told her of some of our encounters the Colonel and I have had over the years, out camping and boating and kayaking. So yeah, it was a good conversation with Lori. I am back at Great Meadows Campground, right where I started, waiting and waiting. It is 10:45, so I've been waiting for an hour and 15 minutes. And if he doesn't come along by noon, I'm going to be getting really worried. So I'm definitely going to stay here in case Dave comes by to tell me something happened. So patience is definitely not one of my strong suits, so this is a good test of patience today. Alright, so I think this is probably as good a time as any to finally fill everybody in on my FKT intentions coming up in late October that I mentioned in my previous video. I'll put that video up here in the cards. That was my fast packing day trip at Mohican State Park. I think I did 24 miles in 6.5 hours or so. And I mentioned a future FKT coming up that I was training for. So on October 23 or 24, I haven't decided yet, I plan to do an unsupported attempt of the Sheltowee Trace. Many of you probably already figured it out. It's 343 miles. Several people have attempted an unsupported style FKT, and no one has ever completed it yet. There's either been some kind of food issue, stomach issue, a high water issue, but I'm hoping at the end of October conditions will be favorable for me to make a run at this. Trying to decide which direction of travel to go for this unsupported attempt has been tormenting me. I kind of was thinking about going northbound this time because that's what John Harden did, that's what Ricky Vandergrift did, and the more I think about it, I think I'm going to go southbound again. I will make that decision after finishing these 50 miles today and after talking to Michael to see what he thinks. But there's just something about going southbound that seems to suit me better. Get the easy miles out of the way first while I have a heavy pack, because an unsupported style is so much different. I'm going to have a 30-pound pack to start with. Even though my base weight is under 8 pounds, I'm going to have 17 to 20 pounds of food in my pack, and that is very heavy. I don't know if I want to tackle the technical southern sections with all that weight in my pack. And that will just wear me out, and my miles will be really low those first couple days, I'm afraid, if I start in the south. So that's what it is, folks. Southbound, at this time, I'm thinking southbound unsupported FKT attempt, and I want to break 7 days. I want to break the 7-day barrier. I won't be happy if I don't. But if something happens along the way and things don't go my way, I will be happy just to beat John Harden's time of 7 days, 10 hours, and of course Ricky Vandergrift's time of 7 days, 14 hours. And if something goes horribly wrong and my pace is down to a crawl and I can barely make it, I just want to beat my other time back in 2019 where I did it in 9 days and 6 hours and 57 minutes. So those are kind of my goals on this FKT attempt. As of right now, it's a go as long as I can get my food and nutrition dialed in. I'm still working on that. There's a long way to go. Now, some of you watching this right now are really excited for me to tackle this unsupported FKT. And I know others of you are ready to click off. And I understand, that's fine. It's different strokes for different folks. But hear me out. I know that a fast-paced FKT speed record attempt on a trail is not for everybody. I understand that completely. For me, I don't care to be in organized sports. I don't care for road races. And the competitive side of me needs an outlet. And I love being in the woods. I love hiking and backpacking. and I like to push myself and see what I'm made of. This is a great way for me to express that. That is why I do FKTs. I know I'm not the best. I know I struggle at times. Sometimes I don't complete them. But I usually enjoy a majority of the FKT process. All the planning, the training, even the attempt. And the best part is afterwards. The memories that are created from going through something like an FKT. Now, I know that might still not convince some of you to be excited for an FKT, and that's fine. I still enjoy a slow, sauntering, relaxing backpacking trip on the trail. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy that, but not every time. Being out in the trail, moving quick and pushing myself is pretty exciting to me. Anyway, that is what I have coming up in October. I will have several more videos to post here in the next few weeks talking about my gear and my food and my training preparation for this FKT, so stay tuned for that. I've been waiting darn near 3 hours. It is high noon. I'm going to give it one more hour. If he's not here by 1 o'clock, I have two choices. One, abandon the whole thing and head home. Or two, hike with him for a little while, assuming he comes by, and only be able to complete maybe 25 or 30 miles. I'm not going to have time to do the whole thing. By the time we finish, it is going to be the early morning hours tomorrow. And I got a 6-hour drive back to Bell Fountain. I got farming to do. I have things I need to be home for. So if he doesn't come by here shortly, I'm going to have to abandon the whole thing or modify the amount of miles I can do. I am bored out of my mind. This is the bad thing about not having any form of communication because of no cellular service. I didn't even bring my inReach Mini with me. So I have no way to contact Dave. Dave has no way to contact me. And of course, Michael has his inReach Mini with him, but I wouldn't want to reach out to him while he's running on the trail anyway. It's high noon. It's past high noon. I'm going to give it to 1 o'clock and then execute plan B. All right, here's the current situation. I left a note on the trail. I spelled it out in sticks and put logs all around it so Michael can't miss it. It says, Michael, Divide Road. So I hopped in my truck and I'm going to Divide Road. It's gonna be probably another 5 to 6 miles. The state line's like 3 or 4, and then it's another mile or 2 or 3 past the state line into Tennessee. So as I was getting back in my truck, Dave pulled in, his support guy, Dave. So I got to meet Dave and told him what my plan is. Dave is hiking up the trail to meet him. He's about 30 minutes out. So everything ended up working out. Kind of went to plan B. This was definitely not plan A. So it's going to work out, but I'm not going to be able to go all the way to the end. He's a little too far behind. I'm only going to be able to hike with him for about 25 or 30 miles. I'm planning on quitting at Bandy Creek Campground and then getting a ride back to my truck at Divide Road. So that's the new plan. I am currently at Peters Mountain Trailhead, which the Sheltowee Trace crosses the road right down there. I remember this spot when I did my through hike, but I actually had a little bit of cell service up here, so I thought I'd stop and take a little break up here. Might even cook some lunch. I made it to where the Sheltowee Trace crosses Divide Road, and I feel like the only thing I've accomplished today is waiting and driving on gravel roads. It is now after 2 o'clock. I'm expecting to see Michael cross here before 3. The new plan is his support driver, Dave, is coming here to give him support one last time before we head towards the John Muir Overlook. And it's going to be a little sketchy for him to find locations to support Michael along the way. So we might have to go some further distance than what he's used to so far. My plan for me is probably just to go to Bandy Creek and at the very furthest Leatherwood Ford. Bandy Creek is like 23, 24 miles from here. Leatherwood Ford, 31, 32 maybe. That's going to put me there around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's going to be a late one. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to finish the entire Sheltowee to the southern terminus at Burt Mill Bridge like I originally intended, just because I'm going to run out of time. I got to get back to the farm and work tomorrow morning. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you guys posted. Well, you can see Dave made it. We've been hanging out here chatting for the last 45 minutes waiting on Michael. He is really moving slow right now. It's been 2 hours since he left Great Meadows Campground, and here we are at 3:20, and I have not walked. Well, I did a warm-up on the trail this morning, but I have not been on the trail with Michael yet, and I feel like this day's coming to an end already. So I'm definitely not going to make it much further than Bandy Creek, maybe Leatherwood Fort. David just took off down the trail to see if he can run into Michael, hoping he's just around the corner. But, you know, it's been a long time, so we're getting a little worried that maybe something happened. You know, if he got injured and broke an ankle or something, his only option to get out of the trail, other than us, would be to hit the SOS button. Because we have no signal here, so we can't track him. We're just kind of waiting and waiting. And David has been meeting Michael like every 6 or 7 miles. So it's been working out so far. Here he comes, folks. He's on a tear.
Oh my goodness.
Michael Stutzman, your soon-to-be new FKT holder. I got wet.
Oh my goodness.
He made it, folks. We're not out yet.
I can't believe you came down. I have no experience, like hiking experience, Jason. I have, like next to you, like 0.5% of what you've done in your life, probably, or less. And I hate spiders, but I'm talking like spiders at home. My wife killed our spiders at home.
Oh my.
And
so you're just as bad as me.
And I'm running through spider webs and they're like sitting on my face and I don't even take time to wipe them out.
Is that right? Wow.
It doesn't matter.
Well, I had to make a spider web stick. We'll see. You know, after you get into it, I know what you mean.
I still use my Trekkie sometimes. Thanks, Dave. You're the man. I gotta calm down. I knew I would go into a high when you showed up.
Well, I'm ready to hit the trail. I'm hoping I can help pace you.
I do not want to go faster than 4. It's got to.
Oh
that
yeah,
would
that's
be too much. Grapefruit again.
This distance that I'm going to be doing with you today, 3.5, is probably.
Okay.
I can do that for 25 miles easy.
If you get me 3 or 3.5,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
And try to keep me lucid. What are you going to take
Unless
in?
I can drive that road, which remains to be seen.
The yellow road?
No,
That's a trail.
It's orange. It's orange.
Oh.
It's orange, so that means it might be passable.
It might just be an ATV.
So what I'm going to say is, if I can't get you there, if I can't get you at 4, 10 is a pretty long drive. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that either.
310?
Yeah, 310's pretty.
Station camp, yeah, that's. I can't remember what that looks like.
Dave, my next question is going to be, I feel like we should plan out the next 2.
Okay, well,
you should input it into my phone in notes or something so that I can look at it, because I'm afraid I'm going to forget. Well, Jason's going to be here.
Yep, and I got maps on my phone too. Okay. All right, we finally hit the trail. 3:55, and we are setting the pace at 3.5 mile an hour. So nothing crazy, but if we can maintain this steady 3.5 mile an hour pace throughout the rest of the trail, Michael's going to be able to finish in a great time still. So this is what a FKT participant looks like, guys, after 300 miles.
Kind of crazy.
A little bit of that run, walk, limp all together.
Yep. The knuckle on my right toe, big right toe, has been hurting me for the last like 30 miles.
Any nail issues yet?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not taking my shoes off the rest of the way.
That's probably a good idea. I seen you had Injinji socks on. You really liking those?
Yes.
Okay. I got a backup spare in case I get my feet real wet and need them.
Yeah. I think I brought like 6 to 8 pairs of Injinjis.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. This is incredible. I better stay away from the edge.
Yeah.
I don't trust myself right now. Oh my goodness.
One of the best views along the Sheltowee Trace right here, folks. The John Muir Overlook. Soak it in. And I was telling Michael a little bit ago that there's only one other view that I remember on the Sheltowee Trace that even gets close to this, and that's at the Blue Heron Overlook off the Kentucky Trail. It's similar. I think this is better.
This is insane.
Yeah. It kind of looks like does a Red River Gorge. There's a lot of spots like this in Red River Gorge that you have views just like this.
I could sit here all day, but I can't.
But you can't because you got an FKT. This is pretty epic. Man, he keeps telling me what an honor it is to have me on the trail with him. I feel the opposite. I feel privileged to be a part of his FKT attempt. And I'm getting some free training right now.
Free training, and I'm going to take a video of Jason taking a video, so I have evidence.
It feels nice out too. It's dropped a little bit. It's still pretty humid, but the temperature feels like it's, I don't know, what do you think, 75? 78? Yeah, somewhere in there. All right, we're getting low on water, and we have a supported checkpoint coming up here in just a few miles.
Is that okay? Does that work
Shoot
for you?
for Bandy. What's the plan on meet up there? If we do Bandy, I'm fine with that. I think it's a good call because
So it's Bandy's 14 miles away, right?
Yeah.
So are we looking at 4 hours? 3, 6, 9, 12.
You're
Oh my, 4.5 hours.
And some change probably.
Well, this is one of our checkpoints here. Just came down off of John Muir, having some snacks, refueling, coming up with a plan for tonight. Looks like we're heading to Bandy Creek next, 14 miles away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we're gonna figure it out from there. If he stops and takes a little 2-hour nap at Bandy, that's probably where I'll be stopping and getting my ride back to my truck. Or we might push on the Leatherwood Ford. Alrighty, back on the move. 14 miles to Bandy Creek. Whew. It is 7 o'clock, so it'll be about 11:30 when we get there. It's already starting to feel like it's getting dark out. Michael, you made it, man. We are at Bandy Creek Campground. And Dave has set up a campsite over here for Michael to hit the hay for a couple hours before he makes his final push down the Burnt Mill Bridge tomorrow morning. We were originally hopeful to make it there today, but it is past midnight and he is spent. Time for a good night's sleep. Well, not gonna be a good night's sleep, but at least a couple good hours, right?
Thank you for your attitude, Jason. It's a blessing.
No problem, man. Glad to help. Here's home for tonight. At least for a few hours. How you feeling?
I've got nothing left tonight.
Are you still confident about finishing this thing tomorrow?
I hope so.
Okay. Well, I'll be watching you on the map share when I get home to see you finish this thing up and set the new supported FKT. Had a great time hiking with you today.
I really appreciate you, Jason.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much.
It was a great training hike for me today. You got this. Well, this is where we're going to call tonight. And unfortunately, I can't stick around for the finish. I really wanted to be at Burnt Mill so bad to come out at the finish line with Michael to see him set the new supported fastest known time. He's still going to get it, barring no serious injuries tomorrow morning. Probably going to end up 6.25 days, maybe up to 6.5, depending on how slow going it is tomorrow. But Dave's pulling the truck over here. I'm going to hop in with him, go get my truck at Divide Road, and make the 6-hour drive home to Bell Fountain, Ohio. So this is where my journey ends, but I had a great training day. Had a blast hiking with Michael for the last, I don't even know how long it was, 10 hours or something like that. So I am signing off, heading home. Alrighty folks, it is 1 week later after Michael Stutzman's FKT attempt on the Sheltowee Trace. We are here at Mohican State Park to do a little trip recap and talk about what all transpired in that final day after I left him at Bandy Creek Campground. So guys, this is Michael Stutzman.
Howdy.
He is from Vernon, Ohio, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump down the road to
about 45 minutes
to Mohican State Park. So this was the perfect place for us to meet up. have a little training hike together and have some discussion about his recent FKT just a week ago. So let's jump right into it. Why did you choose the Sheltowee Trace?
That was a pretty easy decision for me. The Sheltowee, I knew I wanted to do something that was about a week in length. I knew there was zero chance my wife was going to let me do the AT, which that's bucket list up there. But I was like, okay, if I'm working with a week length, I wanted something that was probably going to be 5 to 7 days for me. And the Sheltowee definitely fit in that range for an FKT attempt.
Cool. Talk to me a little bit about your training, maybe even your mental and physical part of the training, because it all kind of plays a role together in preparing for something that big.
So as far as like the physical training, I would say I started that last summer to some degree. That was as far as getting my cardio base in line, and kept that up through the winter. But I really didn't start focused physical training until March of this year, and I put in a good 6 months leading in that. And I usually had like one big goal each month that I was trying to check mark off that I felt was going to prep me for this FKT attempt. My longest training session, I had a brick that I did on back-to-back days where I put in about 40 miles each day. Some of that was out here at Mohican. And then before I left, the absolute longest trail run that I did was 45 miles out here at Mohican about a month before I left, and that was kind of my last final hurrah before my taper.
Okay. You definitely have to put in some long miles to know what it feels like to get to that point.
Yeah.
Some people like maybe just do 5-10 miles of training and never really have pushed themselves to that limit, 30 or 40 or 50, to know what it feels like, because until you do that,
it's definitely a different animal. And I know like one big thing I noticed in training that I wouldn't have been prepared for beforehand was like some of the stomach issues that you can run into. And once you start hitting the 30 to 50 mile range, I feel like you're out there long enough on the trail that you start having some of those issues and having to work through them. And that definitely helped. I was glad I had that experience before going into the attempt.
Yep, I have definitely experienced my fair share of stomach distress.
Tums, lots of Tums.
Yeah. So how confident were you going into this FKT?
Going in, if you would have asked me, I probably would have been humble about it. But honestly, deep down in my head, I was sitting there thinking I was either going to break this FKT or I was going to somehow injure myself physically, whether that's blowing out a joint or tearing a muscle or something that was going to keep me from getting the FKT. And that was honestly in my head probably the biggest obstacle. In hindsight now, that's not necessarily true. But I wouldn't say I was arrogant in my mind as far as that I was going to get the FKT. But I definitely felt like the mark that's set there is definitely attainable. And talking with John Harden, who currently has the FKT on it, he himself says he feels like it's wide open to be lowered as far as from the supported view on the Sheltowee.
I totally agree. So Michael, why an FKT? Some people don't understand why us crazy people like to go on FKTs.
I'd say that's a tough one for me as far as why FKT. I mean, I've always been a driven person. I enjoy running. I didn't really fall in love with trail running until a couple of years ago, and once I hit that, I think the thing that really piqued my interest in it when I saw, I'm going to butcher his name, I think Carol Sabe or Saab, I'm not sure how to say his name, the Belgian dentist who set the FKT on the Appalachian Trail. When I saw that, that's when I really started looking into FKTs on some of these hiking trails. And that's really probably what piqued my interest the most and got me interested in attempting something like that.
He's a dentist, by the way. So that's another reason you like watching him and following him.
It's like we can't leave the AT FKT record in the hands of a Belgian dentist.
Yeah.
We need that to change.
So going into this FKT, what was your original plan as far as what did you want to complete it in? What was your goal?
My goal, like my absolute max goal, I wanted to hit, if I was clicking on all cylinders in my mind, I felt like 5 days flat on the Sheltowee was definitely attainable for me. In hindsight, I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I feel like somewhere in that 5 to 6 day range, if I ran a perfect Sheltowee FKT attempt, I think it would somewhere in that range would now be attainable. But to do 5 days, I was sitting there thinking 70 miles a day.
Yeah.
Which
big miles.
Which is a chunk. Probably a little bit ambitious, but I had told myself I wanted to be in that 50 to 70 mile range, 50 miles as a minimum average per day on the Sheltowee.
And if you're going for 5 days flat, why not go for 4 days, 23 hours?
Exactly.
So at what point did you feel like or sense that things were not quite going according to your plan and you had to like start altering your plan a little bit?
Okay. As far as changing up my plan, I feel like I had to do that from day one. I felt like there were decisions along the way where I was not hitting the goals already on day one that I wanted to. I mean, the first night we stopped at, I think Dave and I stopped at mile 62 on the official trail mile markers. And that already to me, I was like, I wanted to have I was shooting for 80 miles that first day because I wanted to bring my pace back down as the days wore on, because I knew I was going to wear down.
Yeah.
And so that already made me reevaluate the 5-day flat goal. And I started letting myself think, okay, I've got to make this sustainable. I can't sit there and try to reach an unattainable goal for myself and blow the whole thing out of the water just because I'm so focused on hitting a certain time frame.
Yeah, and I know your support buddy, Dave.
Yeah, Dave.
He probably played a major role for you in many ways.
Oh,
I mean, we could talk all day about
I could talk all day
about
But
maybe
just
Dave. Briefly mentioned maybe how altering your plan, that Dave maybe played a part in that. Maybe a few other things that Dave helped you with along the way. That
Dave definitely kept an eye on average pace and stuff like that for me. But can I just say, in the supported FKT world, your crew people or crew person, if you just have one like I did, will make you or break you in your attempt. And the guy I had, off the charts, David Johnson, insane. Like
wow.
We were not clicking on all cylinders on day 1 or 2. By day 3 or 4, our efficiency and our changeovers completely due to him and changes he made, as far as when we would sit there and roll into a rendezvous point, he would get me out of there so much more quickly than what we did day 1. It was insane. It was probably one of the best experiences for me on that trip, and it's something that means a lot to me from the past, from looking at that experience, as far as the amount of teamwork that we had, and I'm going to use a word I don't like to use, synergy. The synergy and the teamwork that we exhibited day 3, 4, 5. I've never been part of a team that worked as well on a singular goal together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That to me was one of the highlights of the whole experience for me, was our teamwork.
Definitely takes teamwork when going through
for
something like that. It's such a long
it's definitely an
time.
advantage to have a good crew person on a supported FKT attempt, for sure.
And I do remember you guys both mentioning this at separate times, that it would have been nice to have at least one more, if not 2 more people in separate vehicles.
Yeah,
and maybe
for sure.
not on every FKT attempt, but specifically the Sheltowee, because there are some, it is pretty accessible.
Yeah.
But it takes a while to get from checkpoint to checkpoint. So if there was been one other guy there ahead of him, ready for the next checkpoint, 7 miles down the road, let's say, that would have been huge for you guys.
Because there'd be times where I would be running 4 or 5 miles, and Dave would have to drive an hour out of the way to rendezvous with me at the next point, just because of the back roads he was having to use.
Right.
So something like that would have definitely been another advantage that you could have used if you're doing a supported attempt.
For sure. So tell me a little bit about what your favorite part of the trail was, and maybe the worst part of the trail. Maybe a part of the trail you don't ever want to see again.
I can give both of those to you. Some of my favorites, John Muir Overlook with you.
Yeah,
that
that's
that was an incredible experience. I was riding an emotional high in that moment. That was definitely one of the highlights for me. I think it was it would have been the second morning I was out taking the sunrise in the Red River Gorge area. Was just incredible. That was one of my favorite hiking sections. And then a third thing that was a huge highlight for me was when I knew that I was coming into a rendezvous point and you were going to be there, Jason. That that was probably the highest high I had on the trail, was when I knew that Jason Wish was going to be rolling with me for the next
it might have been the
next
fastest
20
you
miles.
ran too. Let's cut to that scene right now. Michael running 15 miles an hour across the road
and just bear hugging Jason. That was a big highlight for me. One of the lows, I very much, I'm not going to say the name of the campsite that I stayed at that night, but coming into Smirkyfoot was one of the lows for me. If we're talking official trail mile markers, it was mile marker like 127 to 130 on the Sheltowee. I did not like that section. There were a lot of blowdowns.
Ooh.
It was middle of the night. I about put my right foot down on top of a copperhead, and I had hornets chasing me in the dark.
Oh
it was one of the
Wow.
I was in a bad mental state at that point, and it was a low point for me on the trail.
Oh yeah.
Another low point was probably the Cumberland River section going into Cumberland State Park. That was mentally and physically, I was sapped at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was a tough, even though I really liked the beauty of that section, it was a difficult section for me to go through. And of course, I saw 2 more copperheads in that in that section. Only saw 3 snakes on the trail, and they were at mental low points for me each time.
Oh man. Yeah, I remember that section being very technical.
Yeah,
so.
it was very technical. It was beautiful, but technical.
It is. So, what's in the future? Is there another FKT in the future? Is there another Sheltowee Trace through hike in the future?
I've given my wife full veto power, so I might not get to ever do
That's
anything.
a lot of power. The wife holds a lot of power.
I might not ever get to do anything again. But no, in all seriousness, I'm still sitting here with a baseline of training, a lot of cross training, but I probably FKT-wise won't do anything until next year sometime, if at all. But if I do, it's probably going to be in that 20 mile to 150 mile range. It's going to be a lot shorter distance than something like the Sheltowee.
Yeah.
But also, my focus right now, these next 6 months, I told myself this coming off the trail, and I'm still feeling it in the moment. Going to be focusing on my relationship with God, going to be focusing on my relationship as a husband and a father, and then my work that I do as a dentist.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of my 3 primary focuses here for the next 6 months. Training's going to take a backseat to that.
Those are all very, very important things in our lives, and FKTs and training and hiking, those definitely should take a backseat to those things for sure.
Well, and to be honest, I had been putting this Sheltowee attempt as my primary focus for the last 6 months, and I do feel like I probably should have been prioritizing things a little bit differently.
It takes a lot of time to train for FKT for sure. Maybe some shorter ones. You kind of mentioned it briefly. He did beat mine at Burr Oak State Park, which was probably a pretty easy one to beat. It had already been beaten even prior to him. He's going to go after my Adina Trace next, I think, which has already been beaten, so he has to go after Jeff Watterson. I think that's his name, who has the Adina Trace one now.
I might even have to head out to Pennsylvania and hit.
What is it? Susquehannock and the Queehana.
Yeah, I might have to. Those are in that mileage range.
Those are stepping it up just a little bit over.
Well,
a little bit more than those little day hikes. Those are,
elevation change wise, it sounds like
tough.
those are a little bit more tough than the Sheltowee. So.
Yeah, for sure. So, now that we've discussed everything about the Sheltowee Trace, what happened on that final day when I left at 1 o'clock in the morning? Michael's getting his foot taped up, as you saw in the video, and crawls into that tent and goes to bed. I start driving home to Ohio. I get a call the next morning while I'm driving home in the daylight about breakfast time, and here's what happened.
So every night, let me preface that part of the story by saying every night to this point on the trail, when I would take a sleep, whether it was 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, when I'd wake up, my stoke level or my energy level would be definitely higher than when I went to sleep. And my body would feel rejuvenated and I'd be ready to hit the trail again. Coming into that, I felt like Jason pulled more out of me than I thought was physically possible for myself. And my body at that point to me felt like toast. My heart was pounding, and I was at a pretty low point. And there was a pretty big swing there because emotional high meeting Jason, 20 odd miles later, probably 23, 24, somewhere around there from wherever we hooked up to Bandy Creek.
Yeah, Divide Road to Bandy Creek.
That was a pretty big emotional swing, probably the biggest emotional swing for me on the trail, because I was so stoked to see you. And then coming in there, just how my heart was feeling in that moment. I was sitting there worrying about, am I doing damage to my cardiovascular system, and started letting those thoughts creep into my head. And then when I crawled in the tent and went to sleep, I woke up the next morning, probably 3-4 hours later. I don't know, was it 4 or 5 in the morning? I can't even remember. And I told Dave, my buddy who was crewing me, I told him, I said, I need another hour or two. So I crawled back in and went back to sleep. And even after that, when I woke up, my energy level was probably the same or lower than when I went to bed. And as soon as I'd get up and walk around, my heart rate, I had my watch and monitoring my heart rate, and my heart rate would just skyrocket immediately. And that concerned me. And so those thoughts kept playing into my head. And as I walked down the trail that morning doing like a 40-minute mile walk, my heart rate would keep going up whenever I tried to push the pace. And off of that, I finally made a decision to pull the plug on the attempt, even though I was only 20 miles out. And in hindsight, I probably wish that I would not have done that. Knowing now what I know, that I wasn't doing any damage to my heart and that my cardiovascular system was fine, I probably do wish that I would have continued. But in that moment, I thought I was making a rational decision to protect myself, and that's why I quit.
You got to sometimes you just have to make a call like that. It's hard. A lot of people are not going to understand why you would quit 20 miles out, but you know, it's just an FKT. It's not your life. You could be hurting you could be hurting yourself the rest of your life. So that's what's important.
I had already told myself at like 60 miles before that point that I had already gotten more out of that trip than I had expected, and that I was going to be content with my experience, FKT or no FKT, which gave me a freedom in that moment to sit there and make what I thought was the right call. I didn't feel pressure that I had to finish, which I didn't think I'd feel that. I thought I'd be pulling off the expectations of people who were watching what I was doing and feeling like I've got to impress people or even just impress myself as far as what I was physically capable of. And I didn't feel any need to do that in that moment.
Well, that's good.
It was good.
Well, the important thing is you made it off the trail safely. You lived to see another day and train another day at Mohican State Park with me. So I want to thank Michael Stutzman for sitting down with me and doing a little trip recap of the Sheltowee Trace FKT. I had a great time on those 24 miles with Michael, and like I said in the video earlier, it was a great free training session for me. And I am really looking forward to my attempt coming up here at the end of October, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I will be posting several more videos in the next
That's going to be so incredible
in the next few weeks, detailing how I'm training and talking about my gear a little bit. And I'm hoping maybe Michael will slip down and do a little training run with me while I'm down there. Oh no, you can't. I'm going unsupported. I'm going to be all alone.
Can't even hide in the weeds if I want to.
Oh man, it's too bad. Darn Colonel wanted to come down and film me, but he can't. He can send me off and then visit me at the finish. That's about it. Alrighty folks, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And until next time, this is Michael Stutzman. I'm Jason Wish, wishing you a great time on your next adventure.